Imagine embarking on an unforgettable journey through the heart of Italy, where every turn is a new treasure and every moment is filled with beauty and culture. You start your adventure in Rome, the eternal city. Next, you venture into the rolling hills of Tuscany, where the air is perfumed with the scent of vineyards and olive grove. The journey continues to Venice, the floating city of canals and gondolas, after Five Earth and Milan. But your Italian adventure doesn't end on land. It's about to get even more extraordinary. A magical journey through Italy, topped off with a house music festival on Costa Cruise. Dance under the stars, relax in style, and discover exclusive performances on deck, all while sailing to some of the most beautiful destinations. There are 3 packages to choose from. Sailing dates are from September 24th through the 28th, 2025. Book yours now at festivaloncruise.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Heidi's House. I'm your host, Queen Bee Heidi B. And today, in our episode number 12, our featured guest is Paul Conway. He's a DJ, artist, music producer, part of the Knutsens, also a founder of OGV Music Awards, and much more. So I'm very, very, very excited to have him joining into our podcast. And in the end of the podcast, we will also, like usual, hear a mini mix with some of his releases. So are you ready? Then let's go. So here he is. Paul Conway is in the house. Welcome. Woo-hoo.
Hi, Heidi. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
How are you today?
Yeah, all good. Just looking forward to. I think it's a bit warmer here in Scotland than it is where you are, I think. But yeah, there's a little bit of sunshine starting to show the past couple of days, so better spirits. The spring is close.
Beautiful. I'm so glad to have you joining into Heidi's House podcast, and you're a very, very, very influential person, I would say, because you kind of while we go through this interview, we are going to explore all kind of things that you are involved or have been involved with in your career. And I also know some parts, obviously, for instance, related to the OGV Music Awards and things like that, and so forth. But I want our audience to find out also more, in case if they are not yet familiar with your house music and music industry story, so to say. Again, welcome. And since you are our featured guest, I would like to continue straight away to our question number 1. So could you tell us a little bit, who is Paul Conway?
Yeah, Paul Conway. I'm one half of the DJ duo, the Knutsens. You might have heard of me and my good friend, Mr. John McKinnon. We do we DJ, we make music together, we do interviews, radio shows. We just got kind of missed each other in the pandemic, and we done a lot of interviews together, really. And yeah, we both run Only Good Vibes Music, which is a record label community that's grown into an award ceremony. It's yeah, like I say, radio shows, and then we also just launched a new label called Vibe Collide Records, which is Only Good Vibes Music is more dance floor friendly. Vibe Collide is more jazz and a little bit more expressive music. So yeah, we DJ together. I've DJed myself for about 20 plus years now, made music in that, but Only Good Vibes is a little bit more kind of recent venture, really. Yeah, so yeah, I've been at it for a while, but lots on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking of all your radio shows and programs, all the people who have been attending the interviews, everything. Like, there's a lot that you guys are doing and what you are doing,
When I look back at it now, you think, wow, how much we packed into a few years, because it was interviews every week like this on Zoom every week, and it was just arranging interviews, and that's where it kind of humbly began. A couple of events, trying to do some interviews. Before we knew it, it just exploded into some real high profile interviews, and then we just rolled into music releases, and we thought, let's get people involved. And before we knew that had exploded, and it's just been a real positive movement. It's been a fantastic few years.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm really, really, really happy for you guys. And of course, happy also to be one way involved with that, and that it has also affected me personally,
Brilliant.
since you guys, for instance, launched those awards. And by the way, thank you again. I remember of mentioning this to you personally, but I think it's very beautiful what you guys are doing, that you are like, making the electronic music and house music culture visible in different ways, and
Yeah.
showing appreciation towards those genres, that you present, and really, like, maybe making people more visible, not
Yeah.
necessarily always the really biggest names that most of us
Yep.
house heads know, but also those kind of people who are doing and work continuously in the industry. I think you shine more light, spotlight also to us, and I'm
Yeah.
super grateful for that. So
That's
thank
a
you.
big part. No problem. That's a big part of the awards. We tried to always make sure it was showing love and respect to the people who put the effort and who maybe don't get the recognition sometimes, and also recognise some of the bigger names who also don't seem to get a lot of recognition sometimes as well. So we try and find a balance with the awards where we open it up to everyone and just make sure that people are appreciated. Who It's an idea that I've had for a few years. I was just waiting for the right time to launch it, and with Only Good Vibes, it just seemed like the right time to launch it, because I always see the big awards and it's the same sort of bigger names, and it goes round year in year out. And I thought, there's nothing at a level that's more appreciative of what people are putting the hard work in at a slightly kind of middle level. And I thought, let's launch the idea, see how it goes. And that's the third awards. Was at Christmas there, and it's blown up. It's brilliant. It's great to see it.
Yeah, beautiful. So on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for
No
that.
worries.
All big effort, and it's a big effort to run something like that as well, along everything else that you and your team is doing, which is a lot.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's a passion. It's more of a passion than anything else. We're just very passionate about music, and it's just once we get our ideas into a project, it's like, right, let's go, let's do the next project, and before we know it, it just snowballs into what you're seeing now. But no, it's good to see that it's really appreciated. It amazes me how appreciated it is when I see it every year. How many people get behind it, and the thanks that come in from people always reminds me. It's like, wow, this really is massively appreciated. So it just spurs it on for next year. I've got some great ideas for next year's one as we get to that at the end of 2024. Lots of new ideas just to keep kind of ramping it up, but always appreciating the people who really matter in the scene.
It's beautiful. Now, I want to take a moment to look back on following thing, that what got you originally to house music. You said that you have been DJing more than 20, was it more closer to 25 years already? So what got you to
But
house
20 plus
music?
years, yeah, must be around 20 plus years, really, yeah. What it was John, as you obviously know from the Knutsons. It was his dad who actually was a DJ. So
Mhm.
when we went into high school, John's dad had Technics decks, and we were like, "Wow, we'd never seen anything like it before, really." So he just started. He was mixing. John, my older brother, Chris, who is John's age. I'm a couple of years younger than John and Chris, my brother. They started DJing. I started DJing. We started running little small events in the scout hall, in the local scout hall. And this was right at the start of like kind of high school, really, kind of yeah, maybe 11 years old, 12 years old or something. We were really young, but we
Oh,
just got inspired from that point, and ever since then, it was more trance music. It was the peak of trance music, I think. It was the big trance scene was going on at that time. And John's dad was a big house head. Glasgow and Scotland was always been really good for house music, underground house music. And
yeah.
that's where it just inspired us on. Before we knew it, we were buying records, driving ourselves crazy, trying to learn how to DJ. It took a long, long time to try and mix records together. So we just stuck it out. But yeah, it was ever since that moment. Me and John go way back to that point where it was his dad that inspired us, and then him and my brother And the Scottish scene had a really good kind of rave music was the thing at the time when I was in high school. It was like really high end hardcore techno and rave and drum and bass. Everything was really of a different era, so that inspired us as well. There was a lot going on at that time, you know. So it just that we started more kind of rave, kind of early rave scene, and any house music, trance music, and it just went from there really.
Yeah, it's kind of like evolving. I remember those times also when you refer that the rave was at some point really huge thing in Europe, in UK,
Yeah, yeah,
also here in Finland,
yeah.
you know. Yeah, it was a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
go.
Finland had a good scene. Yeah, it was always I was always into like hardcore techno to get a tape. I was always listening to the tapes. Your Walkman, you're always listening to the Walkman, and it was listening to tapes of rave music from older DJs in school, and it just kind of inspired from that point. And I've never stopped since that point. You know, when I look back now, I've just always moved on. I've been a big fan of jazz and funk and disco as well. It's always been a big mixture of all that types of music. It's just more
Yeah.
recently that I've been able to probably create something that's more to that style of music. But I've always had a love for jazz, funk, and disco. But the thing at the time was rave, basically rave music.
Amazing. Now, this is some additional question, but what were those artists that inspired you most when it comes to rave and that kind of,
I think
genre?
the Scottish scene had a really good. It was a lot of live music. It was rave. It was like hardcore techno. They would call it hardcore techno, and it was like a lot of synthesizers and dancers, and it was all like a live show, which you don't seem to see quite as much. But it was bands like Ultrasonic. You might have heard Ultrasonic was a big Scottish act. QFX, Q-Tex. There was lots of these Scottish and the English scene as well. As well, the English, the breakbeat, the jungle, the drum and bass side of things as well. You know, but Scotland had a very a more four kind of four to the floor kind of kick drum driven stuff, whereas England was more breakbeat, and it just merged into this kind of great scene as the years went on. You know, but I would probably say local bands like and local DJs that were just handing tapes, passing tapes
Yeah.
around school basically, and just listening to DJs like that and trying to learn how to mix from the off the back of that. Really, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, wonderful. I don't know. Somehow, just I remember that I was listening to stuff like Alternate, for instance, a lot.
yeah, yeah.
Alternate,
Alternate, yeah.
it was kind of like, somehow for me, or in Finland, it seems it
Yeah,
was something that was very popular. I remember during
like
the
like
rave.
you say, the European scene was fantastic for rave and like Euro pop and Euro dance and just all of that scene of the kind of mid 90s, getting CDs of that stuff like Germany, Holland, as you'll know as well. It was a
Yeah.
pretty magic time for dance music, I think, wasn't it? It was very inspiring.
Exactly. And I love that we are sharing on this because this podcast is kind of like looking into house or electronic music culture in global
Yeah,
perspective. So now you are sharing a little bit about that near
yep,
history that we had a few decades ago here and
yeah,
which affected to the sound and the club culture and everything very
yeah.
tremendously. So
What music did you start DJing, Heidi? What music did you start playing?
well, I was playing originally, I was trying with the vinyls, to be honest. I was really
Yeah,
like OG,
yeah,
old school. I'm
yeah.
not
So it
saying that
takes
I
a
was
few.
good at that time, but I was playing very popular tracks. I tried to sometimes put in a bit house there as well, but it was mostly
Right.
mostly very popular stuff that people were playing in a discos and stuff like that. I was pretty young
Yeah, yeah,
also when I started
yeah.
that. So it's
Okay.
very similar
Yeah,
what you were describing, like youth clubs and so on. But it was more
yeah,
more pop, disco, that kind of stuff.
yeah,
A bit house
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of vinyl to buy, but I remember it cost a lot of money when you were that young. So it was like you would be saving up
Mhm.
all your money all week to buy like one
Yeah.
record. I remember I bought one record and I had to wait a week to buy another record to be able to mix the two together. I've sat with one record, like, well, yeah, I'll need to wait and save more money so I can buy a second record, because they were pretty expensive
True. And that
when you
was,
were
I,
that
I would
when you were
say,
young.
when you're young, that's absolutely that, and I would say that was one of the reasons why I really didn't, take it too far, because I just couldn't,
Yeah,
deal with the amount of vinyls at that time, and buying everything, or then later CDs. It was taking a lot of money, so it
yeah, it's
was a
expensive.
very dear hobby, but it was,
Yep.
yeah, more of a hobby then at some point.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. Let's continue now to our third question then. Since you mentioned already kind of much here about your influences, but what would you say that who are the artists that have influenced you the most
Recently or just over the years, would you think? Over from
over the
uh,
years, let's say?
yeah, I
Can
would
be
probably
recent,
say
of course.
yeah, I would say my dad has been a huge influence, and my mum as well with music. They're very they didn't play. My dad plays the guitar a little bit. They were just big music fans, real music fans. When they were younger, they would always be out at concerts and that. So that I think it was always good music in the car, good music in the house. So I'd always
Mhm.
been brought up more with a bit of rock and roll and stuff like that, or in disco. My mum is a huge disco fan, so that's in the blood for me now. I think really, obviously.
Mm.
Uh, I think a lot of jazz funk. My dad was into a lot of jazz funk, and that was a big eye opener hearing jazz funk. Not so much jazz when I was younger, but jazz funk. I was like, wow, this is something really special. Even from a very young age, I was like, there was something about that. There was the energy and the jazz
Mm.
to go together. So I would say people like Herbie Hancock and
Wow,
some of
yeah.
the classic names of like Roy Ayers and all those kind of names. Hearing
Oh,
those guys
yes,
and still
definitely.
sounding as good as it only sounds better the more you hear that kind of music. So I would say names like that, and also like hip hop as well. I was massive into hip hop. I'd do a bit of the scratching on the decks. I really wanted to learn how to scratch records. So like a lot of the
Yeah.
hip hop, early hip hop and Gangstar and like DJ Premier, who would be doing a lot of the beat juggling guys, people like that, Wu-Tang Clan. So hip hop as well, all music. But I would say yeah, a lot of influence from my family, without a doubt. My brother, my older brother as well, was just, yeah, music daft. We're all about music daft.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Sounds like you have really, like, music oriented and musical family, so to say, that you come from
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of background. And
And a
and
good
and I think
mix of,
it's beautiful, since it gives you, like, sounds like you have very wide appetite when it comes to music, and you are open-minded when it comes to music. Sounds like that to
yeah,
me.
yeah. It's quite crazy as long as it's from the heart and it's quite a soulful bit of music and it's made for the right reasons. I'll always give it a listen in that sense. If it's quite passionate music and it comes from the right place, then I will always listen to music. I always say I'm not a fan of any one style. I'm just a music fan of all styles as
Yeah.
long as it's yeah.
Absolutely. I was talking also with just Martina about same when we had the previous time our interview, that sometimes you just say that I kind of like all kind of music as long as it's good.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know if it's good or it's not good, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. As long as it's good, as long as it's good vibe music, then it's all right.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
To get that
Uh,
plug in there.
all right. So now I have maybe a question that has been a bit tricky to people joining in here for an interview. And the question
Right.
is to name top three of your favorite house music tracks.
Yeah, my God, that is a hard one. I remember hearing you asking Martina about that, and I was thinking to name three. The house music that really stood out to me was the Chicago house stuff. That was always a
Mhm.
big influence because I had a lot of love for the early rave music here. And then it didn't take much to dig back and be like, oh, wait a minute, I can see the roots in Chicago of it. So I was a
Yeah.
bit crazy with Chicago house for a long time with guys like Frankie Knuckles and
Oh,
is it Mr. Fingers and all the great old
yeah.
Chicago house names. So I would probably say it has to be tracks like Your Love for Frankie Knuckles, the kind of original versions of that, and Can You Feel It? And all that. See, those are classic kind of Chicago house tracks, I would say. I love even a lot of modern house music, but I would say the ones that I always go back to every so often would have to be tracks from like Frankie Knuckles, Joe
Yeah.
Smooth, like Promised Land, and all those.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
so hard to pick three.
Yeah,
But
you
I would
never can
say
go wrong with those.
I would just say Chicago House is one because it was the early drum machine sounds and that sound of the foundations of house. It's something I love all house music, but I would say also stuff like the Glasgow. There was a good group called Slam from
Mm-hmm.
Glasgow in Scotland. Slam we got pretty big, and they had a track called Eterna, which is worth a listen. If it had an old rave sound, but it was an old kind of Chicago house sound. But
Mm-hmm.
and they've got a label called Soma. It's a Glasgow-based label, and they actually signed Daft Punk. They actually signed Daft Punk first to this
Oh,
label in Scotland. So the Daft Punk's first album was out on Soma, and
wow.
it's a great label for more similar sounding, a lot of Scottish stuff, but very Chicago house sounding and techno, a lot of good techno sounding stuff on there. So I would have to say locally, yes, Slam. The band was called Slam, and the label was called Soma, and that's well
So,
worth a listen, definitely.
hey, wonderful. And now this is also very important and great information for people who would like to explore those kind of,
Yeah,
uh, sounds and find out more about that music culture over there. So go and check those things out that Paul just mentioned.
check it out. Go
So,
check it out. Yeah,
so
because that's what we grew up. We grew up. My friend John, his dad was mixing Soma. That he was mixing that label stuff from Glasgow, so that was a big influence from us. But huge label, really. Yeah, yeah. So that goes way back. So, but it's hard to pick three. Very hard.
yeah. All right. Then I'm gonna continue to next question. If you think about your own productions, your own music, your own tracks,
Yeah.
is there some particular track that somehow is more special to you, and maybe why?
I'm trying to think of some of the more modern stuff that we're doing is definitely more jazz and funky and kind of disco based. So I would have to say being able to do the remix that we done for DC LaRue was a really big moment that we got to do, to be working with DC and representing his music, such a legendary disco name like DC LaRue. So I'd say
Mm.
that track Indiscreet, me and John done a remix of his old classic track Indiscreet, and we got Natasha Kitty Cat to do a remix and Mark
Yeah.
Brickman to do a remix on that release as well. So I think that one in particular was really to open up the multi tracks, the original multi tracks of that, recorded from when DC LaRue first recorded mid 70s, was fantastic. So to be able to work with that music was really special, and see the original session musicians and their recordings from God, almost 50 years ago. I think that was quite a special one. And even some of the modern bands that we work with now, we work with Tokyo based bands. They're really good jazz funk stuff as well. I'd say those tracks, but before that, I had made more rave music and kind of hardcore techno and stuff. I'd made it on lots of different aliases from years ago.
Mhm.
So songs like
Yeah.
that, I would say. But recently, I would say but that one with DC LaRue was really special to work on. That was an honor.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I know that it is a tricky question, to answer because it also kind of depends on,
Yeah,
what kind of time scope you want to choose from latest or something that
yeah,
is like, important for you in the beginning of the career and this kind of things. But thank you
yeah.
again for sharing
Always.
on those, and people go and check them out.
Yeah,
Go and check
go
them
and check them out.
out. So
Support the music.
yeah, support always.
Yeah,
So I have few more questions left.
yeah, no worries.
Um, Now, when we talked about your career and those tracks, but what would you say so far in your career? What would be a highlight moment for you? Is there any particular highlight moments that you would like to? Uh,
Yeah, I listened to the previous interviews and I was trying to think of that. I would probably say DJing some good gigs, good memorable gigs has been really good, and just I got the chance to. I was lucky enough. It was a few years back to play in Tokyo for the first time, and that's something that always really stays with me because I'm a huge fan of all Japanese culture. Me and my wife got married out there last year. Believe it or not, we actually went to Japan and got married. So that's always been a really special place. So to be out there DJing for the first time, I think was probably a real highlight, to see the Japanese crowds and how they react to the music, and just the scene and the music the other DJs were playing. Just to be involved in that was a really kind of special moment, I think. So Yeah, probably gigs that I've done. I went out a few years back and it was more really hard edge, like they call it gabber. I was DJing gabber music. I don't know if you know gabber. It's like a really
Yeah, yeah.
heavy. Yeah. So I was out in Japan playing that. I played in like to a big crowd in like a Sunday afternoon. It was like pretty crazy, just to play that sort of music and then to play like deep house and disco and stuff. So yeah, I think seeing the openness to music out there and being involved in that was really, really special. Another big highlight I was thinking as well was when we getting the chance to interview some of the people we did end up getting to interview a couple of years ago was crazy. Looking back now over the past couple of years, it's like, how did we actually end up getting to speak to some of those people on the interviews? It was like to speak to Ramsey Lewis, as an interview like that, who's sadly not with us anymore. He's an absolute jazz legend. If I had a chance to talk to someone like that, was unbelievable, to be honest. So looking back now, rather than just DJ gigs, I would say talking to people like that, like we're doing now, it was
Yeah.
crazy who we ended up getting to talk to off the back of that show.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would
it's
say people like
beautiful,
that.
and like mentioned, you have done so much. I mean, this little interview and podcast, part is just gonna give a glimpse of all the stuff. It's like almost like a little teaser for those people
How,
who want to know more about
how
you.
many hours? How many hours do you have?
We have few more, few, few
I
more
know
minutes
I could
now
go.
for this,
Yeah,
but I think we should make a follow-up episode definitely at some
yeah,
point, because I
definitely.
know that you are keeping going and you had new projects, and that would actually lead us now to our last question, that share a little bit about your current projects. What is going on now and what can we
Yeah.
expect?
Well, the new label I launched that at the tail end of last year, Vibe Collide Records, and I wanted it to be a collision of vibes, shall we say? Lots of music styles, as long as it's all jazz related. Jazz, just anything goes jazz. Jazz house, hip hop, influenced jazz, traditional jazz, funk, just anything with a jazzy or sound. So I've got a couple of big tracks lined up. We've had some great ones out at the tail end of last year, some great tracks out at the start of this year, and I've got some really special ones that I've been working with Opolopo on a track with a great jazz band called Corto Alto out here in Scotland. So I've put the two of them together, and there's a remix coming from him from that one. Plus a French singer called Ariane Mamon, she's called, and I've got Manuel Costella. He's done a remix. So there's I've got a lot of things sitting waiting to go that I'm just waiting for the summer. I think start of the summer, end of the spring, start of the summer to come out. So there'll be a lot coming. I've also got an album. We do the Planet Discopia, which I've actually even got the T-shirt on.
Yeah, I was looking at tea. Beautiful.
So it's been a little while since the last album. We do that with Natasha Kitty Cat. So we've got the next one coming out. That'll be in the summer as well. So there's a lot of things waiting to land this coming summer, really. Another one, we've got what else have we got? A DC LaRue remix. This will be only good vibes music. That's with
Yeah.
Al Kent, the guy Al Kent, the producer he's from Scotland as well. He's a disco producer. Got lots going on. Really. I don't want to forget anything. Uh, our friend Vladimir Setkar, we've put some remixes out for him, and we've got Manix has done a remix. You might know Manix, who runs Daffia, a record label. He's done a remix, which has been waiting to go. So there's a lot that's waiting to come out in one go, basically this summer, really. So definitely watch this space. Plus, I've
Yeah.
done a lot of my own remixes. I've actually launched my own group called Miyoga, which is my own venture, which will be writing original music, original jazz, and original getting some remixes to go off the back of that. More live musicians, bringing live musicians together, and that's going to be just
Beautiful.
under the name Miyoga, basically, which is a little side project that I've got. With the first track of that is finished. So again, summer, it's all coming basically,
Yeah.
all coming at
So
once.
there's a lot to look forward from your side in all
Lots.
of these projects. So
I've probably forgotten something, but that's the bulk of it.
but that's okay, because
Yeah.
the last thing what I would like to ask is that now some people, when they want to know more and follow what's up with Paul Conway, where can they find you in social media?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is just go to our website, is onlygoodvibesmusic.com,
Mhm.
and we try and just because it's all over like all over different sites and all over different social medias. I try and say if you go to the website, we keep that up to date with any radio shows the new releases, it's always getting updated on there, so that it's easier for anyone to find out everything we do. Is say our interviews, podcast, anything. We just center it on the website, and the hope it
Yeah.
makes it a bit easier for everyone. So it's onlygoodvibesmusic.com, and you'll find Vibe Collide. I keep even the Vibe Collide label is on there as well. Everything is on one website. If you search the socials for Vibe Collide, or Only Good Vibes Music, or the Knutsons as well, me and John, the Knutsons, if you can spell that, then you're doing well.
Nonsense.
again, if you go to the website, you'll find everything on there anyway, you know. So yeah, I think that's the easiest way to do it.
That's wonderful. So people go and check that website out, and you will find everything else underneath that, just like Paul was saying. So now, Paul, I thank you for this little teaser of an interview. And I
No
hope
worries.
that we will have a chance to do maybe kind of follow-up later. That would be so amazing, since I know
Let's do
that
it.
you are doing many projects and growing in all these areas that you are.
I
So
don't stop.
yeah,
and
never
keep and
never.
also you as well, Heidi. Keep up the great work. Keep doing your thing, loving your music as well. Keep pushing forward. And this is a
You
great idea with the Heidi's house and the podcast and the videos. It worked very well for us. You know, it was a great time to do that, and it's a great way to bring people together like this and just share ideas. So keep kicking ass, Heidi. Keep doing your thing.
I will. So sending much blessings and love to you, and thank you again. And now we are gonna continue to that mini mix part, that we are gonna hear some of the music, beautiful tracks that were mentioned also here. And again, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Heidi.
And
Take care.
take
Bye bye.
care. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.